Hi, Jackie. Hi, everyone. How are you going?
Hey, it has been good. It's been a little bit busy, but coming into that silly season. So yeah, doing really well. How are you?
Yeah, good. I've just checked out of the Crown for a couple of nights. So
Oh.
I did that at the start of the school holidays because I find it gets me into that like relaxed mindset
Mm.
forward because it's just such a rush time. Like I think that's probably what you're experiencing. Like everyone wants to rush and do stuff before Christmas.
Yeah, it is. And I'm actually just putting some boundaries in place for people about non-urgent maintenance. I'm like, hey, let's just flag this for the new year because we don't want to overwhelm the trades as well, and then they just never get to it as well.
Well, that's what I reckon with the trades is they're just trying to wind up their jobs for the year. So it's not a great
Yeah.
time to start thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to the Sunshine Coast next week. So I'm looking forward to having some downtime on the beach and then can kind of get in that holiday mode.
Amazing, excellent. Well, the other week we were talking about a recent post that we saw that I think is a really great opportunity to have a chat about from a property manager's perspective. And that was a recent post that PK had put on there, which was a concern that property managers might not be increasing rents as much as they could be for the
Mm.
client. And it was really interesting. And I agree. I think there's definitely some property managers where that happens, where
Yeah.
and I've actually heard of it before, where there's actually a property manager in Perth that thinks that you're only allowed to increase $20 per week for each renewal, and it's like, I don't even know where you got that from. Of course, you can increase to market rate, but
Yes.
so you've got to be careful. But I guess let's talk about our different ways of doing rent renewals and increases. If you want to maybe share what your sort of office policy is and process, and then I'll share mine.
Yeah, I actually do all the renewal recommendations myself for all the properties because it is really important that when the time's coming up, so 60 to 90 days coming up, preferably closer to the 90, because in Queensland you have to give 2 months notice of the rent increase. And there has been that COVID legislation that came in saying we can only increase it every 12 months. So just a little caveat of that, if you have done an increase within 6 months, you can still do a 12-month agreement. You just have to implement the increase to where the 12-month would fall. It couldn't be straight away. So generally what I'll do is jump on RP data, have a look at similar properties that have rented, where are the prices at, and then I'll very rarely give like a set figure. Most of the time it would be a range. So this is the high end of the range, say 520, and this is the low end of the range. And then we can have a conversation between the landlord and myself on where we offer it in that range. And we provide that information to the tenant as well on the comparables because that's what it's based off.
And do you have to show the tenants those comparisons, or is that just what you do in your office?
Oh, you don't have to, and not always, depending on the increase. Sometimes if it's the market's just saying $15, $20, we won't necessarily do them. But we are still, to this day, most months we will have ones that are still like they've come on in the last 12 months, maybe the last renewal, they didn't do any increase or a very small one. And there's still increases in Logan for $100, $120 a week, some of them as much as like $200 because they haven't been increased in so long now, and then it's a big gap for the tenant to get their head around for sure.
And so with our office, we obviously provide that CMA as well to the clients so they can see what the average price is for a 4x2 or a 3x1 in the area. And then we would tell the client what they could potentially get on the market. So if the property was to become vacant, this is how much we could get for it. And then we would then advise what we would recommend as a lease renewal increase. And quite often that does fall a little bit under the market amount that we would
Yeah.
recommend. And the reason why it comes under is the conversation I would have with a client is like, would you be gutted if you lost this tenant? And if they say,
Mm.
yes, we love the tenant, we don't want to lose them, then coming in a little bit under, and when I say a little bit under, I mean about $20 a week under the
Yeah.
market rate. And then what I also like to explain is that if a tenant was to vacate, then a landlord's going to be up for like leasing fees, advertising fees. So as a whole picture, it's not always worth the risk of increasing to that market rate, because we don't want to push the tenant out. But if you do have a tenant that maybe has been a bit of a problem or a headache when it comes to paying rent and maintenance, then you might say, well, listen, I actually don't mind if they go or not. So I'm going to put my rent to the market rate. And if they go, that's fine, because I've got a better opportunity to find a better tenant. But if they stay, then at least I'm getting the market rate, and I'll put up with any behavioral problems.
Yeah, and it's so specific to the property as well and to the tenant. It's like, okay, I always like to rate things out of a scale of 0 to 10, because then it really puts it into perspective. So it's like, okay, they don't always pay on time, they keep it in average condition, and but they don't report excessive maintenance, and they're kind of good to deal with. I rate them a 6. And then you compromise in there. But it is really important. Like, I've had multiple cases where the market value for a property might have been 450 12 months ago. They've signed on after just doing a lease renewal at 360, and then now we're coming up to the renewal and it's worth 500. So it's important to put increase, just to take it very close to that market value. You don't want to be anywhere under, I think, anything more than $25-30 a week, you're in dangerous territory of being too far under market value.
Yeah. We had one the other day where we had recommended an increase of, I think it was $30, but the owner wanted $60 increase. And we went to the tenant with that increase, and they actually said, we're vacating, it's putting us under too much financial stress. And so what I would just say to clients, and this client might be listening, and so I've spoken to him sort of about this as well, but sometimes you can potentially just be mindful that if you go to the tenant with such a high increase and then they make their mind up that they're going, there's not always an opportunity to go back to them to say, oh, actually, listen, they will only just go this much if you want. So it is, some people, I think that you can just do that and come back, but it actually doesn't really work that way from a tenant's mindset. They're decided they're out.
Yeah, and that's where it's a good opportunity for us as property managers to kind of have the conversation before most of our increases. We will at some point say, like, the owner's keen to keep you on, like, we're going to be recommending a renewal, but it's going to have to come up to market value. The other thing that people don't often talk about with the lease renewals is, okay, so for example, that $60 a week tenant, it's like, yeah, I appreciate it's a big increase. It is negotiable, but there's no aircon in the property, or there's no dishwasher. That's a great opportunity. And even like security screen doors, they're only like $400. Let's airflow through. So you can implement those improvements to the property that improve the property, makes the livability better for the tenant, and then it also means that you get that increased amount because they're happier to work with us. So I do a lot of those, like especially air cons and ceiling fans in bedrooms and stuff, like easy way to improve the property, and often that'll take you right up to market, if not very close to market value.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I guess in summary, it's if you are seeing comparison rental market analysis from your property manager, then that's really what you're going to use to support and to make sure that your property manager is accountable. So I guess if you do have a property manager that maybe just potentially says, I think we should increase $20 per week, that doesn't give you any backup evidence as to why they've come to that price, that would be something, just do your own research and just say, listen, would you mind giving me some comparables as to where you've got that price from? I think that that's okay to ask the property manager if they don't supply it.
Oh, for sure. It's really important because you're potentially missing out on thousands of dollars if you lock it in, because once it's locked in, there's no more increases. I do want to just riff on that for a second. So in terms of like actually working in a real estate office, a property manager's perspective, I know that at times when I've worked for big franchises over my careers and stuff, the property manager's not actually incentivized to increase it to market value necessarily. There's often not much incentives. Like lease renewals, I don't see it often where they say, okay, if you increase this amount of renewals, you get a bonus. There's none of that. So if they're under the pump and they're looking after a lot of properties and they're already it's an easier conversation for them to have to recommend 5, 10, 15, $20 a week to the tenant, and then it's kind of ticked off as done. So the investors really need to advocate for themselves and the property if they're with a big franchise or a, big organization, because they're not incentivized to do it, and it's not really a priority to get huge increases with them. So
well, quite often the priority is just getting another fixed lease signed, isn't
yeah,
it?
just get the lease signed, and that's the KPI. It's to how many periodic leases do you have, or how many leases are expiring within the state. It's got nothing to do with amounts.
Yeah.
And that's where boutiques are obviously beneficial in that way, where often, for example, my business, those increases are directly correlated to my monthly income. It's not just another number. So yeah, interesting. You got to be careful with them.
It's good to have the I always love educating people on the back end, like how it works from our point of view. So it's good to sort of share that insights as well. One thing in WA, and I've tried to put it into our correspondence to landlords, but it still gets missed. And I'm just going to bring it up here so everyone knows that in WA we've got this stupid rule, and I don't even know why it's in there, where so you've got a 12-month lease, you've just negotiated another 12-month lease for that tenant, and the new rent can't start for 30 days after that fixed lease commences.
Okay.
So if your lease is from February to February, then you're doing a new rent, that new rent can't come into place till basically the 1st of March. And so owners always email to say, why is my rent not increased? And it's like, no, I just can't start it. And I do try to put it in my correspondence, but it just sometimes and so
that's crazy. I've never heard of that. So in Queensland, you have to give 60 days notice of a rent increase. Can't be within, less than 12 months now. So technically you want to issue that lease renewal at least like 60, 70, 80 days. So it's starting as soon as the 60 days rolls around with the renewal. But yeah, so it's pretty much 90 days. It's actually, 90 days.
Yeah, okay. So we do in WA, most of us do our renewals at the 60-day mark. That's when we contact the tenant 60 days prior, let us know your intentions. Then we speak to the owner, and then that whole process takes generally about sort of 30 days, most of the time less, but 30 days. And then it's your new lease is all signed and sorted at least 30 days prior. But if an owner or a tenant wishes for the property to be vacant at the end of their lease expiry, they need to give 30 days notice at any stage. Up until that expiry date, they can give 30 days notice to vacate as well. So
crazy. Queensland is 60 days, 2 months actually. So I wish there was just a standard legislation, because especially like as I build my portfolio as well as a landlord, it's like I have this way of Queensland things, and then you have like Victoria and WA. It's just completely different.
I know, and it is crazy, because it's like we're one country. We're not really even a big country. Like, why wouldn't it all be the same? And then opportunity to potentially manage in other states and things like that as well. Like there could be a whole new refresh of the real estate industry. But
I think it would. I just think more logic and transparency with the legislation, where Queensland, it's almost going very much the opposite of logic. So it's something we've got to navigate as a property manager as well. So interesting lease renewals. You got to be careful and get them done on time.
Yeah, absolutely. And just make sure that you've got that backup evidence from your property manager. So hopefully that helps everyone that is going through renewals. The other maybe just like one final tip is, I know a lot of agencies, and I'm going to start probably doing this as well, where they don't have their lease expire in like the December, January months. Not between the 15th of December and the 15th of January. So if you do have a lease due to expire in the next month, maybe consider just extending it so it expires on the 22nd of January or something like that, so that it doesn't get lost in that busy season with your property manager.
Yeah, 100%. I have nothing expire in December and January. So that's beginning of January anyway. So it's very quiet out there. Hopefully it will be anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jackie, it's lovely chatting to you, and I hope all those insights are helpful for people that need to do lease renewals and understanding the process a little bit better. And Jackie, I'll see you in a week, and we'll I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next week.
Yeah, we'll have to have a chat.
Have a look at some posts, see what's going on in the in all the investor market, and decide.
Yeah. All right, guys, have a good week. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.